This is what people who have less hearing do to clap. We are clapping with so much gratitude. Oh, actually, I think that's magnificent music is the music that's big enough to be able to say, "May the fourth be with you." I know, corny, right? Yeah. Those who don't know, who are not Star Trekkers, today's the... Oh! We do have some people who know their Star Wars better than I do. May the fourth be with you. Oh my gosh. Welcome. Welcome to this beautiful community where we flow from incredibly beautiful classical music to folk music to jazz music to popular, we move with the different beats that artists hear because we welcome all people here. We welcome every journey. We welcome every perception of self, every experience. You are so welcome to be here. And so with that, I am going to invite Jeff to come up to make the announcements.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Chard here on behalf of the worship team. Peggy Barrett Spencer. No, Peggy Spencer Barrett is here, is our... and Reverend Tim, our Minister Emeritus, Tim Barrett. Tim and Peg were here for a couple of years, from 1970 to 2000. The last time Peg was here, we were having a slight technical issue, so we said, will you play something while we get this worked out? It only took a minute, but Peg played Claire de Lune, and we didn't tell her we worked it out. We just let her play the whole thing. Still remember that. Announcements. Sarah Tuck's Celebration of Life. Everyone knows Sarah. Sarah was Branwyn's wife. That'll be Saturday, May 10, this Saturday, 2 p.m. right here. There will be a service conducted by Reverend Karen and a reception immediately following. Bring food, please, and let Deborah Hagenbuck know what you're bringing. If you don't have her email address, see me. I have it written down right here. Thank you all so much for filling up the blessings basket. It is overflowing with toys for needy children. Now that we can only get 2 dolls, we're really going to need those toys. Brenda will let us know what next month's collection is. Brenda Maris, that'll be in your newsletter this Thursday. If you're not getting that newsletter, there are forms under the clock. Please fill out a form. And you can give it to me if you want concierge service. You'll be on the you'll be on the newsletter list, we promise, and other good things too. Who's going to talk about New to UU? You go for it. All right. The first of the UU classes for people who maybe want to be members or learn more about UU is this Monday, 6:30 p.m., the New to UU class conducted by Reverend Karen and leaders of the church. Ken Drake, come on up. We're going to be planting... Carol Gable told me the rain is going to stop after the service. Thank you, Carol, for that. We all want that to happen because people are going to go out and plant plants. And people are also, oh, you were going to say that. You were going to say all of this. I'm sorry, I'll say it anyway. And people are also going to make signs in here, so there's an activity for everyone after the service. Ken Drake.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm chair of the Social Justice Council, for those of you who don't know that. How many of you have ever heard of Your Neighbors, Inc.? I know, yeah, Beth and I, a couple of people. All right, well, this is a program that was introduced to me recently at a meeting of the Mohawk Valley Mutual Aid Network, of which some of us are participating in. It is a program that is designed to reach out to homebound people who are either elderly or disabled and don't have family or friends, well, family and a lot of interconnection in the community. The volunteers prepare healthy, home-cooked frozen meals, which can be reheated at the individuals' homes when they are delivered. Now, in thinking about our church becoming involved with this, it is a little bit problematic because we're a small congregation with a lot of initiatives going on right now. But if there's anyone who would like to spearhead this kind of initiative or learn more about it, I have pamphlets and other information that I can share with you. And I promised Carol Grove, one of the key volunteers in this organization, that I would mention this to the congregation, and we'll try to get some people to participate. If you're willing and able to do so, please let me know. Thank you.
Okay, and we have coffee hour people through Memorial Day. Thank you all so much for that. We don't have any greeters for next week. I don't know what's going to happen if I come and I'm not warmly greeted. If you want to be a greeter, please sign the list that's on the bulletin board outside the double doors. And remember to sign up for your newsletter. Thank you. Oh yeah, the cake. There is a cake here, and it says thank you on it. It doesn't say thank you for what or from whom. So I'm going to tell you, it's from your stewardship team and your church for your generous donations for this next church year, which starts in July. Thank you all.
There's good energy in this space. Can you feel it? So I'm going to ask you to do 3 things in a row where you're invited to read from the book or just listen, to stand or to remain seated, whatever fills your being. But we're going to begin with a chalice lighting with the words from Paul Robeson. And that's on 462. And if you want to rise as you're able and willing in heart and soul, 462, we'll read together. And Amanda is going to light our chalice. I do that almost every time. Forgive me. Samantha. Sam, is that better? All right. So you're going to light the chalice. I forgot the name of my nephew once in church. Ay, ay, ay. So, 462, I shall take my voice for the melody of freedom, words that might inspire hope and courage in the face of despair and fear. My weapons are peaceful, for it is only by peace that peace can be attained. The song of freedom must prevail. Thank you, Sam. And on 5:15, again, you can remain seated or rise if you're feeling it. 5:15. These are our opening words from Richard Fuchs. I'll begin with the normal print, and if you read the italicized, that would be great. For the sun and the dawn, which we did not create, for the moon and the evening, which we did not make, for food which we plant but cannot grow, for this gathered company, which welcomes us as we are, from wherever we have come, for all of our free churches that keep us human and encourage us in our quest for beauty, truth, and love, for all things which come to us as gifts of being from sources beyond ourselves, gifts of life and love and friendship. We lift up our hearts in thanks this day. Thank you. And now we'll turn in the Blue Book to the first hymn by Issei Barnwell called We Are, one of my favorites. We Are. And we're just going to sing it through once.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings through the universe. Who we are. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and sons of great visions. We sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. Who we are.
Please be seated. Thank you. The story for Together Time comes from Kathy Fritsch, Anne McGuire, and Eduardo Trejos. I love the capacity to do this, thanks to Jeff, to get our stories up where we can all see it. What you notice on this is lots of different kinds of people moving in lots of different ways. And it says, we move fast. We also move slow, but we move together. Sometimes we have to wait, and waiting can feel boring, frustrating, and hard. Waiting can also feel exciting, like butterflies, like love. We wait so we can spend time together. Sometimes when we're together, we get stopped in our tracks, like when all the fun and flavors of ice cream are just one step out of reach. We notice when things are unfair, and it helps us get creative. So we make plans together. We solve problems together. We build something better. We work together, kids and dogs, bodies and machines, bees and flowers, fish and water, relying on each other's help. It helps us get where we need to go. Sometimes we find ourselves in unfamiliar places and we wonder, we get curious. We might have more questions than answers, but our questions can help us learn to do things differently and discover new ways of understanding each other. For the things that connect us are also what nourish us, like roots and tubes and straws and friends. And these things that connect us are often what challenge us. Sometimes we disagree about how to be together. Solving one problem can create another, and we don't always know how to make things better. Sometimes we need to take a break. Even when we're by ourselves, we never move alone, like feeling so close with someone who's far, like learning from others who have come before. Their memories can ground us and soothe us and move us. Whether we're by ourselves or surrounded by many, our small movements can turn into big movements. So we celebrate and we make change. We move together. So I would like to share some of my experience in learning and then invite you to share your thoughts, your questions, or experiences too, as you're willing and able. Are you trying to flag me, Jeff? Oh, good. You have to be careful how you move, or you might buy something that you don't expect to buy, or I'll call you. So as a young adult, I joined campaigns and social movements to stop nuclear weapons, to stop apartheid, to stop domestic violence. Often the work filled me with purpose. Often the activity felt satisfying and even helpful and hopeful. But too often the dynamics of the meetings themselves and the events felt tinged by the violence that we were working against. The threads of disrespect or arrogance discouraged me and left me feeling disillusioned and isolated. In a meeting on nuclear disarmament in the 1980s, I asked my fellow organizers what each of them was working for. I wanted to know if they had a vision of what we or they were moving towards, as well as what we were struggling against. The question was met with silence. And then finally a comment that things were so bad we had to just use all our energy to stop the bad stuff. The conversation dropped and we turned to the pressing agenda. There's always an oppressive, I don't mean to say oppressive, but sometimes there's always a pressing agenda. There seemed at that point to be no vision beyond stopping the bad stuff, and we had guidelines for how we wanted to behave with each other, but no commitment or experience to act respectfully and honestly with one another when things got tough. Sexism, racism, ableism, all of these and more were deeply embedded within every movement for social change that I participated in. One organizer I've quoted here recently wrote, "If we hope to harvest corn, we cannot plant tomatoes." If we want to stop violence, we have to stop using violence in all its forms to bring change. Violence begets violence. Partly to move toward what lay beyond working against things, I began the study and practice of nonviolence. I studied the work of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. I read and did workshops on Gene Sharp, who wrote The Politics of Nonviolence, and He was a leader in the Institute for International Mediation Strategies. I worked with the Quakers in Albany, New York, studying and teaching alternatives to violence to people who grew up with violence and now lived in violence in prisons. I started a group called Alternatives to Violence. This has been part of my core for a very long time. Nonviolence is misunderstood as inaction, or turning the other cheek, or forgiving without holding people accountable. This couldn't be further from the truth. Rather, nonviolence is not just the absence of violence. It is the presence of active, muscular love. It is a discipline to practice and live in a covenantal way, promising to try, knowing that we'll fail, and then return to acting on our values and our vision. Our Unitarian Universalist of Utica covenant asks us to learn and practice respect, accountability, compassion, directness, and honesty as often as we're able. And if you don't know what that covenant is, it's on the back of your order of service. That is what makes Unitarian Universalism and other covenantal communities radical in a violent culture. This was actually the work that Jesus of Nazareth was doing, pressuring his community by being an example of acting in ways that aligned with what that community said they believed. I began my study of nonviolence from an ancient culture in India where Gandhian nonviolent campaigns radically changed the brutal relationship between the British and the people of India. Two Sanskrit words resonate in me after all these years, even though I can't remember people's names and sometimes forget words. In English, I remember satyagraha and ahimsa. Because these ancient Sanskrit words, I have not found equivalents in the English language that carry the poignance, the subtlety, the complexity, and the power of these concepts. Satyagraha roughly translates to truth force. Truth force. It's not at all arguing a point to change a person's mind or forcing my truth upon another person. Truth force is acting in ways that are consistent with the values one is trying to share. Another way of saying it, that if love is what I'm working for, then I need to act with the power of love in a given situation and ask myself, what would a person who believes in nonviolence or who wants love as an outcome might do in this situation? Satyagraha requires moral courage to remain steadfast and nonviolent while interacting with those for whom the use of violence is normal or acceptable. Truth force is a living truth. Ahimsa is the other word in Sanskrit that in English roughly means respect for all things or avoidance of violence towards others. Like satyagraha, the word is not just about the absence of violence, but the presence of something else. It is sometimes translated to mean love force. In nonviolent action, satyagraha and ahimsa are necessary companions. You don't do one without the other. Truth force requires a lot of courage, demanding that we act with intention despite cultural norms and fear that push us to comply with how things generally go. Love force requires a lot of self-compassion and compassion for our community as we fail this high value again and again. I know I do. We need to find compassion for ourselves as mistake-prone human beings. We need to find our way to compassion for those opposed to us or those we just don't like. Truth force and love force require each other in the practice of nonviolence or alternatives to violence. Another way to think about it is that if I have courage without compassion, I may be more likely to cause harm than build the world I hope to see. And if I have compassion without courage, I may become a broken-hearted bystander. Practicing nonviolence requires we be aware of our inner workings, knowing when our compassion is active, knowing when courage can be used in service of compassion. One experience I'll share because it changed me early on in doing this work, this truth force, this love force I saw happening before my eyes. In the city of Albany at that time, there was no basic human right of housing protection for the LGBTQ community. I was part of that movement, and people trained for civil disobedience in order to enter the city building to obstruct business as usual. That was the purpose, to obstruct business as usual, to draw attention to this issue that was devastating to a small community of people in the community. So those who trained for civil disobedience voluntarily became vulnerable in order to draw attention to that issue. My role was outside the building as a peacemaker, as part of a nonviolent buffer between the people risking arrest and the counter demonstrators who surrounded us. We peacekeepers were face to face with misinformed and angry people. Now, let me get this on the record. I was terrified. I had good training, and I was afraid. In nonviolent training, we learned not to react to anger with anger. We were trained to listen and present ourselves as non-reactive, representatives of the values we hoped the culture to move towards. I was able to introduce myself to that person by name and asked who this particular angry person was, and he told me his name. And he told me with some rage that we were asking for special rights, special protections that low-income people did not have. Face to face, I listened without anger because I felt a lot of compassion for what he was saying, because it was true. As a low-income person, he did not have housing protection. My quiet and his running through his anger finally helped create a breath between words, and something shifted. There was room then for me to share the truth of what the group was really advocating for. And he listened. And I was honored and humbled and amazed that finally he walked away realizing the demonstration was not what he was told that it was. I was blessed to have that interaction because there were plenty of interactions in my work with nonviolent direct action that were confrontational without learning or chance of reconciliation, at least not that I saw. Interacting with a person willing to listen through his anger was a moment that deepened my commitment to keep working at nonviolence as a way of being. I learned that I could be courageous. I learned that if I had not been compassionate, seeing the angry person across from me as other, I might have responded with blame and anger and escalated the misunderstanding. And sometimes I fall into that courage fueled by anger or fear and forget or can't muster the hope to bring compassion to the table. Then I need compassion for myself because we all fail. It is part of being human. Since the 14th century, the word compassion has meant to bear and to suffer with. To bear, to suffer with. It requires an unwillingness to believe that another person is evil or bad. It requires a willingness to maintain the vision of the world we hope to build rather than slide into the same hurtful behavior as the other side. If I had not found compassion for the angry man in front of me, even as I had found some courage, I was more likely to escalate into mutual harm, increasing the pain and making us enemies. I absolutely felt fear. Courage is feeling fear and choosing to move through that fear towards something of great worth, something worth the risk. But courage without compassion can cause more damage, as I said. If what we work for is a just peace, compassion needs to be combined with courage. And nowadays, the idea of courage conjures up physical strength, brave acts. The word courage, when it came into common use centuries ago, referred to speaking from the heart. The Latin origin of the word courage is cor, heart. Courage in this early use of the word meant being brave enough to speak from the heart, to be honest and vulnerable in that honesty, to speak my truth. What if we understand courage again as coming from the heart, truthful, brave, and vulnerable? What if we practice engaging courage and compassion at the same time? Love force and truth force. Far more than the absence of violence, this practice is the presence of life-giving, generative energy. Practicing nonviolence is also not a state of being that once you accomplish it, you've arrived. It's more like a goal, a commitment we know we'll fail at, but return to having learned more about ourselves and others. It's a quest. So I'd like in these next 10 minutes to invite you to think about your experience of nonviolence, a model you saw that you tried to emulate, an act of courage that moves you to be courageous, or questions that you have. This is not a simple process, not a simple commitment, and requires some disagreement and discussion. And so I'll invite you, and I'll pass the microphone. I forgot to say to Jeff that this is something I'd be doing. Sorry. And so is anybody willing to speak? There. Thanks, Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth. I think it's on. I just have to hold it closer. You're making me think of parenting things. So you've seen my daughter. She was lighting the chalice. And I try really hard as a parent to respond with my child's occasional anger, as children have, with compassion instead of replying in anger. And sometimes that takes so much more energy than replying in anger. And I think hearing you talk about this, that is itself a kind of courage to be vulnerable with my child, be vulnerable as a parent to say, anger is okay, violence is not, and how do we redirect it or deal with that compulsion to hurt when we feel hurt. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Branwen has her hand up.
Hi, I'm Branwen Drew. I've been involved with rallies quite a bit the last 5, 6, 7 years, and none of them have turned into violence. And I had the opportunity on May Day to serve as a safety marshal. And part of that job was de-escalating things. And we had a couple of incidents, but we just more or less ignored the people. And if we needed help, we went, and the Utica police were there. They're very good with that. And always show up and provide some support for us. And it's hard to be nonviolent. I've got lots of opinions in my head that I would love to shout back at somebody giving me a one-finger salute as they drive by, supporting someone who I don't support. But it's better to be sometimes to shut up and just move on and let it go past.
Mary.
I'm Mary, and our language, which so impacts us, is so full of violence. How often do you say, I hate asparagus, I hate this, I could kill you for doing that? No, you couldn't, but every time we talk that way to ourselves or to somebody else or about something else, we're reinforcing that violence, and it's something we need to somehow be more aware of.
Carol.
I've been at a couple rallies with Branwyn since January, you know what, and when people started yelling at us, we just start singing like what the world needs now is love, sweet love, or America the Beautiful, and singing for me helps just calm it down.
Thanks, Carol Gable.
My name's Deb Faust. What I want to mention is years and years ago, a fellow that I was dating wrote me this wonderful little note that said, if I ever do violence to your spirit, please let me go. Amazing person. Anyway, so it's nice to think of it in a spiritual context of our emotional, how we can experience violence emotionally.
Mark.
Hi, my name's Mark Mario. This is going to be contrary to what has been discussed, but I can't help but wonder where we would be today if we didn't stand firm, even though violence was involved 250 years ago. Where would we be? And I don't know, Karen, I really don't know if there's a place for it or not. I mean, everybody says no, and then you look at the work that Gandhi's done and, miraculously got peace. But I just don't know. I don't think America would be here. And now where we are is even worse.
If there's time, I'll share some thoughts about that. George, way in the back. Thank you, Mark.
To an extent, I think I would like to second that. I think there are times that violence is needed, like during the American Revolution against the British. But I heard somebody once say, the language of love will bring us love, and the language of war will bring us war. And there's a way that all the words that we utter come true. They're like utterances. It's like we're casting a spell into the world in a lot of ways. And I think one thing to bear in mind when you face controversial opinions that are different from yours, it's worth remembering, I think, that everybody's broken. And I think it's important to understand that and always operate from a place of both logic and love, is the way that I've discovered. Because I've found a new sense of compassion recently. And I'm not a big fan of the current situation, one iota. But a lot of the people that I've seen that are supporters of it, I'm starting to recognize their brokenness along with my own. And for some reason, it's given me this new sense of unity and an understanding of, I suppose, Christ's message, love thy enemy. And I really think that's the only way forward. And I agree with what you're saying, Karen. I like the idea of non-violence is an important thing. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I think we have time for two more. There's Lisa in the back, and yes, Peggy would like to say something.
I'm Sally Carmen, and this spring I've been to 3 rallies.
McKellar.
The last one, May Day, where I had my sign about climate action, and that's something I get really angry about, and it's hard to control sometimes. But my daughter said, "Aren't you afraid to go to these rallies?" And I said, "Well, if they attack this 87-year-old woman in a walk with a walker and oxygen, then maybe I'll get on national news and accomplish something."
It was very Gandhian of you. Up with, yes, please, Peggy would like to say something. Am I right, Peggy? Yeah.
I think of ahimsa as minimal harm. Ahimsa as minimal harm, and that applies to what he referred to. We have to defend ourselves sometimes.
May I say a little bit about what you just said? That if I heard you correctly, Peggy, you were saying you think of this ahimsa as causing minimal harm, and that we will sometimes need to respond to violence in a way that minimizes harm, but still sometimes has to use force. Is that accurate? Thank you. Thank you. I think this conversation will hopefully continue after the service. Thank you so much for sharing. And the last thing I'll say, not that I want to be the last word, but if you would like to study more about this, that Gene Sharp has written a great deal about the use of nonviolent direct action and the use of nonviolence in the political world. And he and many others have written about the different kinds of conflict. And there are like 3 of the 5 different levels of conflict where you don't have to use force of any kind. But the 4th and 5th levels, you've got to do what you can do to stop harm. And know that out of that need for force will come the seeds of more violence at some point. But that to stop the immediacy, the phrase that was used was, if the people or the language being used in this conflict is a willingness to blow the other out of the water, then there's no room for the nonviolent interaction that I'm talking about, that there's only room for containment of the violence. And then you're thinking always about how then if it's possible, do we reconcile over time? So thank you all. Thank you so much. As part of what is true, what I'm learning from all of you is that since January, and actually for long before, when we read the news, when we see what's happening in other countries, the amount of suffering in the world is very hard to keep aware of and to respond to. And so the tendency has been for lots of us, out of our own self-defense, as our own self-care, to pull back from the media and the news and to focus on positive things. And sometimes it's just to shift and not pay attention at all. We have to do what we have to do to maintain our own well-being. And if what you're hoping for is to shift into a place where you hope to feel less mired, less overwhelmed, then it's important to do the next right thing, whatever that is. And after the service, there are 3 or 4 different ways, they're invitations for you to do the next right thing with other people. And one of them is to plant these beautiful plants out in the garden because it won't be raining. And also, says Carol, and also then there will be 3 other projects. One involves paint, another one involves creating, which I'm going to invite Beth forward to talk about, and one of them involves writing messages to political officials. Am I right about that, Ken? Okay, Beth, would you describe what it is that your work is? Oh.
I'm a one-woman demolition machine. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth. I think some of you know me. Usually I'm hanging out on Zoom, but today I've come here. I was invited to do an art project, and it's interesting that we're talking about nonviolent resistance, because it's something that I've been interested in. When I went to college, I was studying a lot about women's art and resistance, and with the current political system right now that we have, I've been thinking how to put those two things together. So one thing that I used to do was there's this, there are online groups that do artist trading cards. And mostly they create them, they do collage work, or, you can do watercolors, however you want to create them. And you can go ahead and trade them with other artists. So I thought, well, taking this idea maybe a step further is doing artist trading cards, but you can do them anyway. You can do collage work. You don't have to be an artist to do them. I brought a whole bunch of collage pieces, art pieces, and things that you can put together. Anybody can do it, adult, children, and if you want to do artistic things, you can. It's whatever you want to do. But you can do whatever you really want to. I mean, you can promote whatever cause. I mean, in this case, I've got Be Kind to the Earth, and this one is Protect Our National Parks. But you can do it with any cause that you're interested in. It can be political, it can be snarky, it can be just nice, just something like be kind, be compassion. And the idea is to actually go out into the world and put these in different places. You can go to the library and put them in bestseller books for people to pick up. You can go to your doctor's office and leave them in magazines. You can just trade them with people. You can leave them at grocery stores. And it's just a way to interact with people in a nonviolent, not with any sort of conflict, but hopefully to get people thinking in a different way, to get out of the social media echo chamber. It's a surprise. That kind of takes people by surprise if they open a magazine and they just happen to see something colorful. Ooh, what's this? And it might get the people to engage in a different way. And like I said, you can do any sort of cause that you want. It can be environmental. It can be for LGBTQ rights. It can be for any cause. So I'll be in the back room at the long table with a whole bunch of art supplies and things. So come and see me and please participate. I'd love to see you. So thank you. Yeah.
Beth has agreed to pass them around, and you can take a look and see what she's talking about. Okay, and Ken is going to be working with writing to elected officials in that room. If you want to go do artwork, either painting, we're going to make signs for the flower pollinator garden, but do these things if you're able to go out to root for the for the people planting. That would be lovely, and maybe we can even get somebody to take a picture. Somebody willing to take a picture of the people who gather out there. Thank you, there you are. I didn't see you right away. Yeah, we lean on Jerry a lot for pictures. Would you take a moment just to breathe? Feel yourself as centered as you can feel here in this space with these people who Work for love. Know that as difficult as things are, that there is beauty, that there is love, and what we do will serve to increase that. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Well, of course, I forgot the hymn. Tell you.
Should we do the offering first and then do the hymn?
All right, let's do that. Since we normally do that, let's do that. I think it'll be good when I'm done up here, because then you'll have a sense of what's really going to happen. Yes, the offerings we give are just so important, so much about extending our values and our vision into the world, not just filling the coffers, but expressing who we are and who we hope to become. Time to collect this morning's offering.
Harp will be on 6, Kim.
What I'd like to do before we extinguish the chalice is to essentially bless these plants that are going out to the front, and to also bless all that we do from this moment onward as a way to say yes to the world, a way to affirm that we wish the world to thrive. We want beauty, we want the pollinators, we want the bees and the butterflies to do well. We want to express the truth of what we know about the world. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Harry Belafonte used to sing 1074 before it was on our hymn book. Turn the world around. And if you can imagine Harry Belafonte singing, it was not somber. Do you have any special instructions for us? No.
We're not doing any repeats.
We're repeating because we're doing all 3 verses, right?
We're doing all 3 verses.
We'll figure it out.
From the fire, living in the fire, go back to the fire, turn turn the world around. So is life. So is life. So is life. So is life. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? Seeing one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do so is life. So is life. So is life. So is life. Water makes the river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. So is life. So is life. So is life. So is
Oh, thank you to our intrepid singers, hymn leaders. Thank you, Peggy. As we close, take your sense of humor into the world. Take the love we feel here. Take a small act of hope that reignites your capacity in your heart to do the next right thing. And so may it be. Amen and blessed be. Let's extinguish our chalice, since that seems to be what I have forgotten to do this time. I did all that on purpose to remind everybody we're not supposed to be perfect. Yeah. We'll go with that. We extinguish this flame. May the 4th be with you.